Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. And folks, there's one thing to talk about today. It looks like the Philadelphia Phillies are finally back. We'll break it down in today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You might know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space, in sports talk radio for 5 years, 97.5 The Fanatic. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 3 years, and I've been the host of Locked On Phillies for 3 seasons now. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, get your new notifications when episodes are posted. It's a great way to help us out here on Locked On Phillies. Number one way to say thank you and you like the content. So if you do enjoy the content, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate it. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Guys, oh my goodness. I forgot how good it felt to watch the Philadelphia Phillies win a series, to demolish a team, to show how good they can be. Like, I forgot what this feeling was like. And it's crazy because we saw it for a large majority of the season, but everybody's patience has been tested in the past month and change. It has. It has not been a good stretch for the Phillies. We've talked about it ad nauseum because there was not too much else to talk about. I didn't know how they were going to get from where they were, the slump that they were in, and may still be in. I think they're out of it, but the slump that they were in, to where they had been for a lot of the year. And it was going to be a tough spot to do it against the Los Angeles Dodgers. You go on the road against a team that knew if they take 2 or 3 from you, they've got a good look at being even with you in the standings. If they took all 3, well, the season series is a wash. Like, there was a lot on the line. And while I thought there was a special moment in the final game of the Seattle Mariners series when Brandon Marsh caught that ball blind, and then you had the 3 home runs in the 8th inning, I thought it was a tough spot for the Phillies. I was not going into that Dodgers series with expectations of a series win. And the Philadelphia Phillies, well, they had other plans. Man, it was just – we talked about the win on Tuesday night and how it was a great performance by the Phillies. It felt like a typical Philadelphia Phillies win. They had tallied 14 hits. Last night, well, the offense – it basically came from one man. I know there are other guys with hits. The total amount of hits in the game for the Phillies, 10. I told you yesterday, 8, 9, maybe double digits was probably the mark to get to if you're going to want to find a way to win this baseball game. And while Tyler Phillips got the win, like, I want to give him some love first. He battled. He had a rough first inning, giving up 2 runs in the first, immediately surrendering a lead that he got from a Kyle Schwarber leadoff homer. More on Schwarber in a second. But to go 5 innings, allow 6 hits, keep it to 4 earned runs, and just battle through, that is like a tough start for a young pitcher. I respect what he was able to do last night, and more so, the bullpen was outstanding. Orion Kirkring, Jose Alvarado, Matt Strahm, Junior Marte all got through, only allowed 2 hits, did not allow a run, 1 walk between those 4 pitchers, 4 innings of seamless work to keep the deficit, well, not the deficit, but to keep the game at 4 runs allowed, and the Philadelphia Phillies had a chance to fight back. I mean, they were down 4-1 after 2 innings, and you kind of felt like, okay, well, you're going to have to find a way to fight into this, but the 4-1 deficit, it feels like you're headed towards a spot where the Dodgers are just going to shut you down. In the middle innings, 2 runs in the 5th, 5 runs in the 6th. That's where the Philadelphia Phillies really won this game. But, I mean, as much as, like, the Philadelphia Phillies are starting to play better baseball again, and they're starting to look like the team. They're not playing perfect. They had some defensive miscues in the game. They had some opportunities missed in the game, but when I look at what this team is able to do now, it just feels so much more like what they did the first couple months of the season, which was find a way to win day in and day out, night in and night out. And they did that last night. But the guy that we really need to talk about is Kyle Schwarber. What a darn game from the leadoff hitter. He has had such a weird time here in Philadelphia. He's hitting over 40 home runs in both of his first 2 seasons as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. That should say, wow, this guy's a premier power hitter. But he's doing it from the leadoff spot. And people have not liked that. And I'm not here to relitigate Kyle Schwarber leadoff. We're all past that. That hasn't been an argument for months because we know, maybe even a year, we know that's what the Phillies are going to do. But last night are the type of nights where you look at it and you say, man, I don't care where this guy bats in the lineup. I just want him to bat. And as the emotional leader of this team, Like Kyle Schwarber, make no mistake, he's the locker room leader. Bryce Harper's the guy. Trey Turner may be one of the better players, if not the best overall player when he's going good. JT Realmuto's a veteran. Nick Castellanos has been around the block, and he brings something interesting to the clubhouse as a veteran. But the guy who runs this locker room is Kyle Schwarber. He is the adult in the room amongst a lot of great players and a lot of great leaders. And last night, he set the tone straight off the bat for the Philadelphia Phillies. He had the leadoff home run, which, my goodness, is he going to set the major league record for most leadoff home runs in a season? It feels like he's going to get pretty darn close to it if he stays on this pace, an insane pace that he's had recently. I mean, he went yard 2 nights ago, and last night, listen to the stat line, 4 for 4 at the dish. He also had a walk. He had an RBI double. He had 3 home runs and 7 RBIs. Like, the Phillies scored 9 runs, but one of those came via a wild pitch from Joe Kelly. So you only had 8 RBIs in the game, and 7 of them came off the bat of Kyle Schwarber. Like a 3 home run night. This is the first time a Philly has done that since, oh yeah, Bryce Harper did that earlier this year. But still, like, wrapping your mind around what that could mean to this team, it's just to have the guy that sets the table, the top of the lineup guy, the leader in the clubhouse, go out there and say, we could give up 4 runs, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't care. We're not losing tonight. You remember the "we ain't losing" thing from the 2022 postseason run that Bryce Harper told Rhys Hoskins? Like, that's basically what Kyle Schwarber did last night. He just said, folks, get on my back. I'm going to take us to a series win. We need the momentum right now. And it was an amazing thing. If you're a Phillies fan waking up today, you should feel 2 things. One, you should feel very relieved that it seems that this team is finally coming out of that slump that you're in. This is the breathe a sigh of relief day. Okay, they are the team that we thought that they were. They are. I know 2 games in LA don't make all the difference in the world, but that's a big series to win. That's a big spot. That's one of the tougher spots this Phillies team has been in all year, and they passed the test with flying colors in spite of the struggles they've been in. That's amazing. Like, that is probably the series win of the year, all things considered. Like, that is the biggest spot that they've been in against the biggest opponent they'll play probably the rest of the year, depending on what happens with the division. You got a couple more series with the Atlanta Braves. It could get tricky if the Phillies don't really step on the gas here, but I feel confident that they're still going to win the NL East. But in the biggest spot, this team pulls out of the slump then. That's the mark of a special baseball team. I'm not overstating this. I don't care if you say, oh, you're jumping the gun. You see them win 2 games, and all of a sudden they're special again. No, you should feel a sigh of relief today. You should feel very relaxed about the Philadelphia Phillies because they showed you that they're still capable of being as good as we thought that they were. But I told you there's 2 things you should feel. You should also, and I'm not pointing fingers, I feel this way too. You should feel a little silly. We all should, for doubting the Philadelphia Phillies the way that we have the past month or so. And part of that's fair, part of that's unfair, right? It is unfair to say you shouldn't have doubted this team because they were in a really bad stretch. They have the 2nd worst record since the All-Star break. Only worst team has been the Chicago White Sox, and they've got 1 win since the All-Star break. They might have won against it, but like, they had lost 21 straight during that stretch. Like, the Phillies were, for all intents and purposes of teams in actual baseball that matter, all due respect to the White Sox, the Phillies were the worst team in baseball. And now to make that jump is like, I can't fault anybody who during that stretch was like, I'm worried about this team. There should have been a healthy amount of worry. But a lot of people in this fan base took it too far. A lot of people were telling me this Phillies team stinks. They're going to collapse. They're doing what the Eagles did of last year, where you saw them at 10-1 and then fell apart in the final whatever games of the season. Like, I guess 6 games of the season. People believed that this Phillies team was going to do that. And if last night wasn't proof, if this series wasn't proof, I don't know what will be. They're going to come out of it. They're going to be a great team. So, like, but where it is fair to say it's silly is we had such a large sample size that this team was good. We have such a large sample size that these players are good. We have such a large sample size that this manager is good, that this organization knows what they're doing. And it feels so vindicating to know that this team is coming out of this right now. There was part of me that was like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everyone who believed in this team was wrong. Those thoughts creeped into my head. It's hard not to have those intrusive thoughts when you see the team playing the way that they were. But now it's kind of those, man, I was silly for ever doubting them. I'm not calling you dumb. I'm not even calling you wrong. I'm just saying that when you see it from the other side of that dark patch that the Phillies were in, where they couldn't find their way to win games consistently, it's like, oh, okay, it really was just a slump. And now that we have something tangible, now that we have those games against the Dodgers, and you have a series that's very winnable against the Diamondbacks, so you're a better team then, and you have a lot that you're feeling probably when you step into Chase Field tonight to take on the Diamondbacks for the first time at their ballpark since playing there in the NLCS last year. There's revenge on their mind. So there's that added little bit where it's like, okay, now we feel like we got momentum. Now we feel like we're playing the way we should. Now we've got a team that we want to beat for more reasons than just we need to continue to improve our record. And this is a great spot for the Philadelphia Phillies to be in. So, Phillies fans, you made it. We survived. There are going to be other hard parts of the season. I'm not saying there won't be another series loss. I'm not saying the postseason isn't going to be hard and they're just going to run through the World Series now because they won 2 games against the Dodgers. But this is the coming out party of the Philadelphia Phillies once again, the 2024 team that could be the best team in baseball when everything's all said and done and could be lifting a trophy. And that feels darn good to be able to talk about. So couldn't give enough credit to Kyle Schwarber. Couldn't give enough credit to this team. Tyler Phillips, the bullpen was outstanding in this series. Like, I love everything I'm seeing from this team right now. And it's so refreshing to be at that point. But like I said before the road trip, this is going to be a grind. 10 games in 10 days. No off days between what just happened and what you got to do tonight and the next 3 days after this against the Arizona Diamondbacks. So coming up, we're going to preview that series. We're going to discuss a hot Diamondbacks team that's been playing pretty darn well lately and why the Philadelphia Phillies, well, they should still go in there and win 3 out of 4. We'll talk about it coming up as we continue today's episode. First, though, I want to talk to you about my friends over at Game Time. They're the absolute best, and I'm going out to Arizona. I'm going to be seeing those games against the Diamondbacks. I need tickets. I go to Game Time. That's the way it works. There's just that's the simple equation. Tickets equal Game Time. There's no extra features in there where you have to think about this situation or that's no. Game Time's perfect for every situation. Not only are they an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier, but prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last minute deals, all in prices, so you don't get surprised by fees at the end. Views from your seat, so you know exactly how you're going to be watching the game or the event before you purchase the tickets, and their lowest price guarantee. Their game time guarantee gives you 110% of the difference if you find seats in the same row and section for less. I mean, that's everything you could ever want in a ticketing company. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets, and they do more stuff: comedy, concerts, theater, other sports. Anything you need a ticket for, chances are Game Time's got you covered. You know what's even better? We're going to cut you a deal. You take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time, and you download the Game Time app. We'll create an account. Use code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. $40 ticket, half off. Easy enough, right? Again, terms apply, but create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today because they've got the last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed with Game Time. I also want to talk to you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. They're the best. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're in speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. They've got over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. I love that saying. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. All right, let's preview this series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. No rest for the wicked, folks. The Phillies are back on the warpath, and trust me, they're going to want to win this series. With the Diamondbacks, that's a team that we know the history between these two teams, and we know that they don't exactly like each other, and we know that there's a lot momentum-wise on the line for both of these teams. So let's talk about it. We know the Phillies just came off a series win of the Los Angeles Dodgers, and they're in a situation where they want to keep that momentum going, lest they fall back into a point where you feel worried about this team again. They're not fully out of the woods yet. Like one series win, if you follow it up with the series loss, is not going to make us feel any better. It'll be that was another flash in the pan, and this team can't win consistently. So it's a big series to keep the momentum going that I think the Philadelphia Phillies have found. Also, the Diamondbacks just swept out the Guardians, a damn good baseball team. On top of that, well, they took 2 or 3 from the Pirates before that, a team that the Phillies lost the series to coming out of the All-Star break. The Diamondbacks are rolling hot right now. They've won, 5 of their last 6? And they head into this series. Trust me, they're as motivated as the Phillies are. We're going to look deeper into the standings right now, or not right now, for our final segment. But the Diamondbacks, don't look now. They're 63-52 and only 3 games back of the Dodgers. They're smelling blood in the water. They're a postseason team, but they're thinking, could we steal a backdoor division title this year? Knock off the Dodgers from their perch atop the NL West? They're definitely thinking about that. And they've got a lot of guys getting hot that are helping them get to this point. So it's not going to be an easy series, right? It's not going to be a situation where the Phils just roll in to Chase Field and say, hey, we're better than you. Let's take advantage. No, I mean, this is going to be a battle. And it's going to start with a tough one tonight because you've got Colby Allard on the mound. I know we talked in an episode earlier this week about Taijuan Walker making a return soon, Ranger Suarez making a return soon. Well, those guys aren't back. So you're going to have Colby Allard going tonight, and it's going to be similar to a bullpen game where he's going to give you what he can, but you're going to have to rely on that bullpen that was so good in Los Angeles against the Dodgers. You're facing Jordan Montgomery, who has not been good this year, but he has a great pedigree, a big-time free agency signing that has not worked out for the Diamondbacks. The Phillies were somewhat interested in him, but the 6.37 ERA says maybe they made the right call to not sign Jordan Montgomery. Either way, you're looking at a situation where he's a pitcher with pedigree. Was on a World Series winning team last year. He's ready to step up for the moment. Lefty. Phillies don't do as well against lefties. That's a tough matchup. Tonight will be a tough game for the Phillies, especially coming off the emotion of winning that series against the Dodgers and doing a quick turnaround into a matchup with the Diamondbacks. The rest of the series, well, it doesn't get significantly easier because the Diamondbacks, well, they just have a solid team. Now, you have Wheeler going in game 2. That's going to be great to see because he has been really, really good in his last start was incredible. 8 innings of strong ball in that win against the Mariners. And he's going to be facing off against Ryan Nelson, who has not been all that great this year either. An 8-6 record with a 4.65 ERA. That's a game the Phillies should win. So right now I have the series as, at worst, 1-1 by the time you get through 2 games. Then you got Nola Gallen in game 3. That's the premier pitching matchup in this series. Nola Gallen feels like playoffs all over again, and Gallen's been having a strong year. Nola's been having a solid year, like better actually when you look at the numbers than Zach Gallen, but you know that either of these guys can have one of those 7 or 8 inning like shutdown performances. That's where the pitching is really going to come in for the Philadelphia Phillies, but also the offense is going to have to do to Gallen what they did in game 1 of the NLCS, where they jump him early and find a way. That one's a toss-up. So I have it as 1-1 and then a mystery game there in game 3. So again, not exactly the setup to say easy series victory for the Phils. The final game, you have Christopher Sanchez going on Sunday in Arizona against an undecided pitcher for Arizona. So they're not exactly in the world's best spot when it comes to their pitching rotation. They have a lot of guys that have not been pitching up to what you'd expect them, but their offense is starting to heat up. Ketel Marte has been amazing for them this year, an all-star starter at second base. He's got 29 homers. He's batting .298. He's got 80 RBIs. That's the guy that you want to avoid. They definitely have a dude there that you've got to say, we're keeping an eye on Ketel Marte to stay away from him. Now, they've got other dudes that you definitely want to keep an eye on. We know Lourdes Gurriel, he's been a Phillies killer to some extent. Corbin Carroll has started to come out of the slump that he was in. He's only batting .215, but he's been better recently. He hasn't had his best year. Christian Walker, still a guy that can hit the ball out of the yard, 23 bombs on the year. Like, they have some players. Eugenio Suarez, he's a guy that you're going to have to keep an eye on. We know these names. We know him from the NLCS last year. We know that when the Diamondbacks get hot, they can be a solid offensive team. But overall this year, well, they haven't really hit like it. They're batting .257, which is a mark better than the Phillies. So the average is good, but the power numbers, well, they've really come from 2 places, and it's Walker and it's Marte. They have 137 homers, so the Phillies 143. So it's just like the offensive numbers are solid. The pitching numbers are not very good. It's been that like discrepancy for the Diamondbacks where pitching has kind of let them down this year. Offense has kind of carried them, but lately they've kind of been picking it up in all facets. So I don't know. It's going to be a tough, fun series. This is what you want, though, right? You want the Phillies playing at their best. You want to play teams that, well, you don't want to play teams that are playing at their best, but you want these series to matter and be interesting. And as much as I love the Phillies beating up on lesser teams, I love it more when they go into LA and they beat the Dodgers. When they go into Arizona and they find a way to beat the Diamondbacks. The more I look at this series, I do want to say, like, I came into this road trip with expectations of 500 ball, 5-5. Right now, they've won 3 games. So if they split 2-2 with the Diamondbacks, that's not a pull your hair out, lose your mind over that type of result. You can't lose the series. You can't. You got to take at least 2 games. And if you take 2 games early, you give yourself a chance for a series win. If you don't, I'm going to have to stick to my original evaluation of this road trip, which was, hey, you're going to be okay. If you go 500, that'll be a step in the right direction. You build momentum, and the Phillies have clearly started to build momentum. So that's the thoughts ahead of the Diamondback series. It'll be a fun one. Respect to Arizona. They're playing good baseball right now. More respect to the Phillies. They're the better team. Go out and prove it. This is the time where you go from they're figuring stuff out. Oh, they figured stuff out. Oh, now they're rolling. It may not happen that fast. It may be a series split, but that would be my guess for where I think the Phillies are at. Just feeling like the momentum around this team. On paper, this should be a tight series. Momentum-wise, I know the Diamondbacks are playing well, but it feels like the Phils are really starting to step on the gas pedal again. And that would be a beautiful thing to see. 2 straight series wins. Is that even possible for the Phillies? Of course it is. We saw them win 8, 9, 10 series in a row earlier on in the season. They were rolling for a while. We'll be looking at a good opportunity for them to do that again, in my opinion, in this series in Arizona. Coming up next, we're going to take a peek in on the standings because as the Phillies take that series against the Dodgers, we're going to look around at where they're at with the end of this road trip in sight, but also less than 2 months till the end of the season, where are teams potentially trying to chase them down. We'll discuss as we continue Locked On Phillies. First, though, I want to talk about our friends over at Prize Picks. You know Prize Picks. They're the absolute best. They're America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. They got over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. You don't have to play against any bots. You don't have to hit a target score. You don't have to play against other players who might have like a perfect lineup and yours was just close to good. No, all you do is you pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and you watch the winnings roll in. I believe I said yesterday to keep an eye on the lefties, including Kyle Schwarber. Well, if you had taken more than on basically any of Kyle Schwarber's stats, you feel pretty darn good about where you're at today with Prize Picks. I mean, you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's not just baseball, by the way. When football gets rolling again, you can mix and match sports. You can do all this stuff on Prize Picks. They have a lot of awesome ways for you to try and win money on daily fantasy sports. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get a first deposit match up to $100. You put $100 in, they give you $100 on top of that. How great is that? Again, that's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, you know their slogan. Pick more, pick less. Folks, it's that easy. I also want to tell you about Liquid IV. I'm heading out to Arizona. It's going to be hot, 102. 104, incredible desert heat. I could get a little dehydrated out there. You know that I'm going to have a beer. You know that I might have maybe like a margarita. But what I'm definitely going to do, because Liquid IV was kind enough to send us a product pack so that we could try it. Now, I've used Liquid IV before they even became an advertiser. I'm going to take my Liquid IV because it makes you feel so hydrated. It makes your body feel right. It helps you get back to normal when you feel like you've had a long day out in the sun or long day at work or anything. When you're taking in America's pastime, sitting out there, sweltering in the heat at Citizens Bank Park, well, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's popsicle firecracker flavor. They taste amazing. I had my first one yesterday. Man, they say in this ad copy it's a surefire summer hit. They're not wrong. You can try that. You can try any of their other different flavors. They got a bunch of great ones. They got the original. It's powered by LIV Hydroscience. Liquid IV Hydroscience is an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients to turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. You get 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Oh my goodness. I'm so happy to be doing a show like this. Now, remember, no episode tomorrow because I will be in Arizona watching the team play. Not going to have my stuff out there. So I will get back with you on Monday on the backside of the Diamondback series, but I already previewed what I think the expectations for the series will be. I do want to thank you real quick before we take a peek at the standings for making Locked On Phillies your first listen today. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast with host Paul Sullivan. You might know him as Sully. He's here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. So you can prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, let's take a peek at the standings and where the Philadelphia Phillies are at right now, because 2 wins don't make all the difference in the world as far as momentum. But guess what, folks? As you wake up today, turn on Locked On Phillies and listen to me tell you this. The Phillies are once again the best team in baseball by record. 68-46, a half game better than the Baltimore Orioles and the New York Yankees. They're 2.5 games up on the Dodgers for best record in the National League. And when you look at the division, this is the great part. They're back to 7.5 games up on the Atlanta Braves. The Braves just can't seem to close the gap no matter what the Philadelphia Phillies do. When the Phillies aren't playing well, the Braves don't play well enough to close it. When the Phillies get hot, the Braves sink back. The Mets are 8 games back as well, but that lead feels a lot more comfortable than it felt when it was getting down into like the 5 range. You feel better about the buffer. Now, you need to keep pace. Just to look at what Atlanta is doing, they have another game against the Brewers today, and they've already lost 2 against Milwaukee. So to see them get swept by the Brewers, that would be a darn good thing. Then they have a little bit of an easier setup playing against the Rockies. They'll play the Giants. They'll play a couple teams that are not postseason teams right now. The Angels after that. So they have a bit of an easy stretch. You need to keep your foot on the gas, but you're in a much more comfortable spot in the division. You're currently the 1 seed in your league. You're the 1 seed in all of baseball. If the playoffs started today, there would be no team higher seeded than the Philadelphia Phillies. They'd have home field in the NLDS, NLCS, and potentially, if they get there, the World Series. So for all of the things that the Philadelphia Phillies have gone through, it's incredible that they still have the best record in baseball right now. Like, that's insane to me. And that should be comforting. Remember, we talked about you should feel relief today. You should be able to feel like a little bit of, deep breath. Okay, this team is back to being who I thought they were. Part of that is looking where they're at in the standings. Let's just look at the run differential. Now, the Yankees have caught them in run differential. They're plus 118. That's pretty darn good for them. The Phillies, the only other team over 100 in run differential, plus 106. The Phillies have the best record in baseball, and they're 3-7 in their last 10 games. If this team starts even playing 500, they've got a good chance to find their way to the top seed in the National League. And they should do, based on what we've seen them do earlier this season, better than that the rest of the way. Is this team a 100-win baseball team? I still do believe that. And are they still the best team in the National League? It's hard to argue seeing them take 5 of 6 against the Dodgers in matchups. They're better than the Braves. They're better than the Brewers, who they swept in their only matchup with the Brewers so far this year. I mean, they're the best team in the National League, and they haven't been playing their best. It's a great place to be, right? Part of the silver lining of the bad stretch is, wow, they survived that and they're still where they're at. They had such a good distance between them and other teams. It shows you how much better they can be at their best than any other team in baseball, and certainly any other team in the National League. So sometimes you got to peek in on the standings, and when you feel like the team is floundering, you realize, well, there's other teams in baseball that aren't catching you, so you have to be doing something right at some point, or you have to be at least keeping on par with other teams, which when you had to start the Phillies started with, like, that's enough. So good things all around on today's episode of Locked On Phillies. The hope is when I talk to you next time on Monday, and I will have some special content. I told you in yesterday's episode, I'll be taking some videos of my time out in Arizona at the stadium. I'm going to put that all together, do some work to put a cool little feature together from out there at Chase Field in Arizona, and hopefully the Phillies series wins so I can talk a little trash to Diamondback fans in person. But we're going to have some special content. We're going to talk again on Monday. Hopefully I'm talking about this team doing exactly what they just did against the Dodgers, proving that they can still play darn good baseball. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for checking us out. Please make sure you're rating reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out here. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, by the way, your team every day. And folks, enjoy your weekend. Stay cool, stay dry here in Philadelphia. It's going to be rainy, and keep rooting on those Phillies. They're coming out of it. I'll talk to you Monday on the next Locked On Phillies.